Hello, Richard here. Welcome to part 2 of restoring this old school workbench. And before we go too far, I'd just like to say a really huge thank you to everyone that took the time to comment in the last video to give me ideas as to how to actually go about doing this up. Had some really great ideas, had some ideas I'd never thought of in a million years, which is why I put it out to you guys, the great folks of YouTube, to help me out and to give me some ideas. So again, huge thank you for doing that. Had some really good information, some good discussions went on. And hopefully other people who watch the video can gain something from that too. Now, the one thing that hadn't occurred to me as a way of fixing this was simply to flip the top over. So on the top rails here, some of you gave me the idea of just basically removing the top rails, flipping them over, and there's probably good wood underneath. That was a really great suggestion, and I hadn't thought of that at all. I probably wouldn't have done, to be honest. So that was a really great idea, and one that I'm going to take you up on as well. So if you remember back to the first video, there's two main things with this. First, I want to improve the top, because the top is really horrible. And secondly, I want to raise it up because this is very low. This is about 30 inches high, and I want it about 38. Based on the comments and based on having a look at it and a think about it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the top timbers over, see what we've got underneath. And in terms of raising it up, I'm going to go with the idea, some people have suggested sled feet, some people have suggested plinths. I've got some 5x5 timbers over in the barn over there, which I think would be perfect for making a plinth for this. So that's probably what I'll do for the height, is make up some sort of plinth where this can just basically be put on top, and it's not permanent. Then I can separate them and move them around if I need to. So here in part 2, what I want to do next is to look at taking the vices out, take the top off, and we'll basically see what we're up against. There's going to be work to do. It's not just going to be a case of simply taking them off and flipping them over. But the good news is I'll just bring you in a minute and show you something. Right, so one of the things with this is that the tops are actually held on with coach bolts. You can see these holes here. So to take the top off should just be a case of undoing the bolts and pulling it off. Now, as it happens, it doesn't look like any of the coach bolts have actually got nuts underneath. So that makes life a bit easier. I think the front's just held on with the vices, but as you can see here, the whole top is kind of fairly loose already. So that's going to make it a lot easier. So the first job to do before we can get the top off is to take the vices off. So let's get on and do that. All right, well, this is the inside of the bench, and I hope you can see this okay. And this is what the internals of the vice looks like. It's held on with basically 2 bolts, one here and one over here. And the vice goes through 3 holes in the front face or in the apron. And there's a hole for each of these. You've got the 2 sort of main sort of support rods, and then there's the threaded lead screw here. So what we need to do by the look of it is take these bolts out, and then there's a split pin at the back. So I reckon we take the split pin out, we should be able to remove this rear piece, and then hopefully the vice will slide out of the front, and then we can just remove the inside here. So that's the theory anyway. So let's see how we get on with that. Okay, so let's take out the split pin. This all looks very tidy, I must say. It's all in very clean condition. Okay, well, that came out easily enough. Let's see if we can actually slide this back piece off. I'm guessing this will come off now. Hopefully it's not spring loaded and it's going to hurt my fingers. There we go. That's that piece. So now if I press the quick release button, this should slide right out the front, hopefully. Ah, there we go. Right. Okay, so remove this block. Now, I think these are some of the longest bolts known to mankind. There we go. That took some unscrewing. All right, try a socket wrench on that one. Be easier because that's got a hex head. The other was square, so hopefully it's a bit easier to take out. Actually, it seems fairly loose. Maybe I just do it by hand. Yeah, I don't think it's actually in there properly. There we go, right. So that's that bit. The vise is out. Well, the right-hand vise, sorry, left-hand vise is out anyway. All right, and there we got our first glimpse of the underside of the boards. We'll go to better look when I pop them out, but that's where the vise came from. One more to go. All right, well, that's the first vise removed. It came out fairly easily. Next up, take off the other vise. Okay, well, that's both the vices removed. The first vise, you might remember that we had this rather nice looking split pin holding the vise in. It looks like it's the sort of the brand new part. The second vise, the actual lead screw was held in place with this. Yes, it's a little bent nail. So yeah, I think the vise on that side's had a little bit of aftermarket care on that. But anyway, these are the things you find. So onwards and upwards. Okay, with the vices out, as I said, the coach bolts don't appear to have any nuts underneath at all. And with the vices out, I think we'll find, yeah, the top should just kind of lift off. So let's see if we can get this off and have a look. Need sort of two pairs of hands on this, really. I think that's got it. Will this come off of here? This should just pull off of the tool well slat, unless it's pegged through by that bolt maybe. Let's raise it up a little bit, have a look. Oh, okay, let me flip it the other way so you can see what we've got. The looks like the tool well board is held on by this bit of wood, so probably just need to drive these coach bolts out and see if we can get it apart. But anyway, let's have a quick look under here, see what we've got. So yeah, that doesn't look too bad at all. There's a few little splits and cracks, but that's going to make a much better top than what we had before. Obviously where the vices were, there's some big cutouts. I'll need to recut those from the bottom. But for these, I'll probably just fill these up. I'll probably just put Dutchman in these and then plane it all flat. But on the whole, that's looking pretty good. So if we imagine that, oops, back on top, obviously subject to a bit more cleanup, that is already looking better. Not a lot better, but yeah, I can visualize that being used as a workbench. Needs a bit of tidying up. So right, let's see if we can actually get it apart and then see where we are. Okay, right, well, I've got all the coach bolts out and everything's apart now, as you can see. So this is a bit of a sort of mock-up of how it could look. So it's all looking pretty good. It's all looking a little bit squarer and tidier than it was. Something interesting, though, that I've uncovered over here, which I'll just bring you in a bit closer on so you can see it. Right, if I bring you in on this corner of the bench underneath, and we zoom in here, you can see we've got a stamp, which is quite cool. And it says LCC, which is upside down on the left. And then J&M 1960. So this is even older than I am. What we got, that would be 64 years old. And that would tie in actually with the, looking at the vices, they look like they were the sort of like 1940s, 1950s era of record vices. So that would sort of date this at around that time. Well, obviously there is a date stamp there and the vices are probably from the 1950s. So interesting little bit of history there. Okay, so some of the other things to notice are that if you look at the vice hole on the apron on the right, this kind of reinforces what I said about, I think this has been fitted by a civilian. If you look at the sort of proper holes, they're nicely drilled, probably with a jig, and they're all nice and round and even. On this side, yeah, looks like it's been gnawed out by a Yorkshire Terrier. And also this was the vice on this side where the cap on the lead screw was held captive with a bent nail. So again, I say if you come around the other side and look at this side at the hole, hopefully you can see that. nice neat holes again. So I think the vise was originally on this end, on this side. The other thing is the vices are recessed into the top. So we've got these big holes in the top now, which will be on the top surface if I flip this over. That's not a problem. If I can sort of work out what sort of wood this is, then I'll probably just cut some Dutchman to put in there and glue some wood in there, plane it over to flatten it. And I'm going to have to cut new vice recesses underneath. I'll probably keep the vices so that the rear jaw is internal, so we don't have an external kind of rear face on the vice. It's just embedded within the bench. Talking of the grain, I'll probably plane it up a little bit later to have a look. But if I look over here, if I bring you in on the grain here, see how close I can get. So if you've got any ideas what wood you reckon this is, let me know. It seems fairly hard. You know, it's hard to dent it with a nail, so it's not a very soft wood. But equally, it's not all that heavy. If I pick it up, it's not. If that was oak, I'd probably know it. I mean, it doesn't look like oak from the grain, but be interested to see what you think that is. Maybe beech. It looks a little bit beachy to me, but I'm by no means an expert on these things. The other thing of note is that obviously if I flip the timbers upside down, you'll see that the grooves here for the tool well are now at the top, which is not any good. So what I'd need to do is to cut new grooves in a suitable place, and that'll be a good excuse for me to get my older antique grooving plane out. I've got an antique plough plane, which would be quite good fun to use there. So again, I'll probably put Dutchman in these grooves, just glue them up, just to reinforce this edge. I don't want this edge to break off, so we'll glue something in there. The actual tool well board is really horrible. Let me just get this out of the way so you can see this more clearly, and then I can also show you the tops of the bench as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so that's how it looks with the top off, and the tool well board is just loose there, but it's really quite horrible. It's really naff. It's not much better underneath either. It's quite a horrible piece of wood. Not that it matters too much, but I don't know. Notice it's got a nail stuck through it there as well, so that's not ideal. Not sure I can do much with this really. I mean, it's cupped and it's really that's really. I mean, that's just so rough, unbelievable. So yeah, maybe I'll smooth that over. Maybe I'll just see if I can find a bit of plywood that sort of size and replace it with something a bit nicer. Anyway, let's get rid of that for a minute. So here's a look at the top. I'll just sort of show you around what we've got on the top surface here. And this has got me to thinking, a lot of people in the comments very kindly suggested that one way of gaining height on this was to actually raise this piece up, to actually raise the top up. And that would actually be quite doable because we've got a good bit of sort of width here. It's quite a wide piece. I could cut a piece of wood, say 4 inches thick, put it on there. Obviously, we've got a bit of a cross brace in the middle as well, so we want plenty of support across there too. So, because this is kind of like an evolving situation as we discover what we're up against here, I mean, that's basically the flavour of my channel. I like to sort of bring you along for the journey. I'm not trying to do sort of full-on tutorials that are all fully worked out. I like to share with you what I'm working on. You know, I like to show you what I'm working on and share the problems, and we can solve them together as well. And it's really great, I think, to be able to sort of put a video out and for you guys to sort of join in on the comments and, help guide the process as well. So at this point, I am thinking of actually raising the top up. I wasn't going to, but I thought if I make up a bit of a sort of a piece for here, maybe a bit that runs along the back and along the front, and then I can raise the apron up as well. So the apron there, that can just raise up on the new piece of wood. And I reckon that would probably be quite good. If I raise the top by 4 inches, then I've only got to raise the base by 4 inches to get my full 8 inches. And raising the base, it's easier to raise that by 4 inches than it is to raise it by 8 inches. Now I've got some timbers. Let me just show you what I've got. So what I've got is I've got a couple of these 5x5 fence posts, I guess you'd call them. These are basically brand new. They're tannalized timber that I managed to acquire from someone. Someone in the village was giving them away, had no use for them, so I thought, well, I'll acquire those and stash them for a future job. So I think these could be quite good. You know, they're 5 inches by 5 inches, about 8 foot long. but I could soon cut those down to make a new top for the bench to raise it up a bit. So that's probably the favourite plan for the moment. So I think that's the cunning plan as it stands, is going to be to raise the top up by about 4 inches. That'll give us a bit of extra height. So that's something I can make a start with. I can start cleaning up the tops as well, get those cleaned up. And the vices they're over there, just off the side there, they need to be sort of restored. So I've got plenty to be getting on with. And that's something someone mentioned on the comments, was the likelihood that because this has been used by children a lot, they have a tendency when they're bored to hammer nails into everything. So the top surfaces like to be absolutely full of nails. You're not wrong, actually. Let me go and get one of the tops and I'll show you what I mean. All right, I've got a little Black & Decker metal detector here. We'll just sweep this across the surface, and the people that have said this is likely to be full of nails and therefore you don't want to plane it are absolutely spot on. So let's have a little detectorist session. So yeah, I think we had some pretty bored students back in the day, back in the 1960s. So we know a little bit more about what we're up against now. I think we've got a plan of action. Next thing really is going to be to make the extension for the top. So we'll make a little frame, goes along here, probably along the back and along the side, raise the apron up on the front, and then we can see about cleaning up all the other bits and getting the top fitted back on. So that's up next.